Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Ashane, and I'm a master's student here at the MCT program. Today we have our special guest, Edo Fouilloux, and today he will be talking about new challenges and opportunities that arise while programming and playing sound inside 3D space. Edo is a visual innovator and a multidisciplinary craftsman of graphics, sound, computing, and interaction. He co-founded Dicocon in 2015 to work with mixed reality technologies, turning ideas into products, building teams, and collaborating with talents from different backgrounds. On the first project, Mousse is pioneering on the field of interaction and music in virtual reality. Edo is directing the concept and aligns the business strategy with Gigaon's creative vision. He was developer and designer for the VR class and also worked on research and development in a project called Tree, which is a virtual reality project that transforms you into a rainforest tree, where you can experience the tree's growth from the beginning to its fullest form. During the years, he has shared his knowledge across the globe in topics such as audio programming and production using new media, how to make and love music with immersive media, and most recently, he has done a speech on building and playing sound machines in a virtual space. Today he will be demonstrating the new interfaces, components, and philosophies inside the books, the sandbox instrument where you can build and play sound machines in VR. So I suggest that we run the first session, first half until 10:45, and take questions and a break and come back at 11 a.m. So we are so much happy to have here today, and please a very warm welcome to Mr. Edo Fouilloux.
Hi, I will show you a little bit on the philosophies of what we are doing, and then I'm gonna move towards a live demo on the basics of this modular system. So, thank you for the introduction. And as was said, the project we are working on is called Mousse, and you can build sound. So it's a playground for real-time sonic exploration where you can explore the different principles of sound by combining different pieces. It's under the hood is we start with a premise where sound is motion. So the way that the speaker makes sound is by pushing air. So you're animating the voice coil. If you do that fast enough, between 20 and 20,000 times per second, you will be able to hear it. So that's something that all the devices we use to produce sounds are built, the principle they're built on. And thanks to virtual reality, we were able to visualize these principles. So the concept is that you can build and play your own instruments, but these instruments are modular. We didn't create an instrument trying to replicate what already exists, but start analyzing the pieces that makes those instruments and give them to the user. So it's a fully modular synthesizer. And the question when we talk about modularity is what is a module? How do we divide these pieces? And how can they be separated and recombined? So we started from the very beginning with speaker and an oscillator. And then taking the arithmetic components, like basic operations like multiplication or addition, we start playing with these concepts. And then the question that arises is how do we connect these modules? And the answer that we figure out is, well, let's divide it by the kind of information that we are passing on. So we have three types of groups of components, but we have two types of information. So we have discrete, something that happens in one moment. If you press a button or switch a toggle, and we have continuous, like everything that is audio rate, that is happening, like a tone, like it's information that is passing by. So we divided these two data types into analogies that you can see. So we have bulbs, electric components, to represent the discrete data types, and we have the continuous or the audio rate into cogs, mechanical components. And these objects can be connected among themselves. And the third type of components, there are interfaces, so buttons, sliders, and some new interfaces that are just possible in virtual reality, like a 3D therapy. And what the interfaces will do for us is will allow us to control this information in ways that the user might see fitting. So I'm gonna jump into virtual reality now, and I will give you a live demo on how to start building these things from scratch. Okay, so one moment. So this is it today. Before I jump, I just want to show you two videos. I'll show you that after the dance. Okay, so 1 moment. Please just ask any question while I'm doing this. It's a little bit difficult if I cannot see you or hear you, but just let me know if anything while I'm doing it. That's the benefits of doing a live one. Okay. So this is the palette. So all the objects and all the machines that I'm going to show you. First of all, we started with a fantasy around this project. So you are an inventor of sound machines. So it's basically when I put the headset on, it's like I get super tiny and I can be walking around the electronics that make this electronic music instruments. And we have three tabs. So this is the blue tab is the stream components for audio signals, and this is a speaker. So that's how we can create sound, and the speaker have a voice coil that can be animated by an object like an oscillator. So I'm gonna, let me just, this one so it's less confusing for you. So this is an input, and this is an output.
Huh. Nice.
And if I connect this here, my new object, the oscillator, has also an input. But this input will tell this object what to do. In this case, is the frequency of the oscillator. So if I start moving the frequency to a higher number, you start animating the voice coil, and eventually we will be able to hear it. And this object has like different wave types to tell what is the pattern that is gonna go up and down. If I don't want to hear it, I disconnect it. So, this is the very basics of electronic music. And now we are gonna have a little bit of control onto it. So I'm gonna let it run. And this is a button. If I press the button, you can send information through this button. So I'm gonna put this one to 40, and I can drag a wire. Maybe you can see it, and I can connect it here. So I'm gonna put it to 80. If I press this button, let's make another button. Let's make another one. Oh. And the last one. So this will be just to make it silent. So now I have a little instrument here. So let's make another sound. So this is starting with a tone, very basic tone, an oscillator, and a few controllers. Let's make another speaker. And I will go back to the glue components, and I will get a white noise generator. So this is this is how it sounds by itself, but we're gonna combine a few pieces to get a more interesting result. So this is a multiplication, and that's how we're gonna control the amplitude, how loud this guy is going to sound. So this is doing it by hand, but it's too. I cannot do much with this right now. What I'm gonna do is have another piece to modulate the number that I'm doing this in a more machine-like way. So this is gonna be a decay envelope, and I can again input output. And it has another different parameters here. So this will be the duration of this. And I want to have a little bit more control on the sound that I'm hearing. So I'm going to add a filter. Disconnect this. Connect it here. This is a cutout. Okay. So now I have two sounds. And I would like to put them in a sequence or a loop. So we're gonna go now to our event components, and I will get a metronome that will generate a constant string of events based on the frequency that I can set with this number. Okay, so let's just put it this, and let's just put it to 0 for a moment. Because I don't want this thing to sound all the time. So I'm gonna get another component to divide the input. So the NTH, what does is it will let this event pass every whatever number I have here. So I'm gonna put a 3 and 2 to have a polyrhythm. So I'm gonna have my vent feeding this guy, and then feeding this guy. And I will connect it here and here. So now but this, so what I can do now is I'm gonna have some randomness, so it's not all not happening all the time. It's not giving the same sound all the time. So this is a random generator. It's giving me something, a random number between 0 and whatever number I have here. So now it's playing with the amplitude. And what I can put here is also control the filter, the resonance of the filter. Okay, so we have something going on here, and let's get to use these guys as well. I'm gonna get another way of dividing my events. This is a cycle delegate. It's basically a step sequencer that I can start fitting here. Oh, it got into a strange. I'm sorry, I need to restart it. Sorry, I need to. I don't know what I did, Sean. CD0_D. Okay. So I will show you something like, I don't know what happened. Are you cool? So I'm gonna just show you the other way that I was gonna build the. So this is what I. So this, the previous way and this one is, there are two ways of making a loop. We'll reveal the other one quite fast, but I want to show you another way of doing it. Since this is not optimized for professional use in the sense that you can do, it's not goal oriented in that way. It's more optimized for exploration and empowering the what if. So for example, something that we start playing with is, instead of just controlling something with a more traditional way, like a metronome, you have a marble generator. So if I push this, a marble comes out. And I can create a pad here to be able to use these marbles as controls as well. So you can start composing with gravity. So I'm gonna make another tone, again with very simple components. Another sine wave, multiplication as before, speaker. Decay envelope. And a MIDI to frequency converter. So this will let me use the marbles as MIDI input, and they're gonna modulate the frequency like the buttons before. So this guy has also another wire that I can connect. And let's get funkier object. So this is we call it a laser board. So you can so I'm gonna hit the the tracking is okay. So what I can do here is making this into a loop as well. So the way that this is working is I'm sending a number, the marble is carrying a number, and when the marble hits the piece of wood, the piece of wood sends a signal, and I can do something. It's like a fancier or more complicated button for that matter. But I can make it into a loop by having another one catching this guy and connecting it back. So and then the delay on the so instead of this driving I can and you should be able to so this is another way of making loops. And somewhere I have my button back. How are we doing on time? Because I cannot see the clock.
10:30.
Okay, so I will show you then a little bit of a bit more basic machine, and then after that we can go to any questions. Let me see. So load on. Oh. Just one second. So with a bit more time, or what the community is sending, because these are just text files, so you can the components become very easy to share, and you can start making instruments a bit more traditional instruments, like this step sequencer, which we see the same components that I showed you before, making the sound behind. And we have 4 sounds in this case, like, and we have we call it a toggle board, sequencing each sound. So the slide. And I can also modify the sounds that this is the bass, this is what I want. So the basic idea is we want to start sharing this component, these machines, but then we are betting on the community to start taking them apart, like modifying them at will, and then sharing them again. And something that we are exploring as well is the performative aspect. So that's one of the videos I wanted to show you. Because as you see, you can follow what I'm doing instead of somebody just punching on an electronic instrument. You can become a bit more going back to the motion and in performance side and showing a bit more. So there's two aspects. One I want to show you right now. So this is one of the concerts that we start having. So 1 minute, so a few seconds. And you cannot hear this unless there's no sound. So as you can see, the performance becomes a little bit more expressive for that, to say the least, and that opens two new channels. One is how do you interface with a instrument that you can fully customize by placing buttons in different places and everything in relation with your body. So it becomes a hybrid between dancing and making music. And the other one is the visual side of it, like when the performer is moving a slider, and you can hear how it's affecting the sound. You can follow what is going on with the performance in two different inputs, visual and oral. So these are the basic on the principles. And I don't know if you guys have any questions, or I can show you some other things.
I have a question. So how deep goes the customization? Are people able to kind of create their own modules from code, or is it only kind of your modules that are available? You can kind of create macros or whole
Right.
instruments.
As it is right now, we have a lot of modules. It's around 100, and when it comes to the interfaces, like the dependencies, and if you press a button, this happens. So like you can program quite advanced setups. When it comes to the audio, we are figuring out a way to open this thing for users. But as it is right now, we haven't opened that. But you have a lot, like you have a lot of possibilities in that domain. We just start implementing physical models, like string simulation plates, and that was in collaboration with Aalborg University in Copenhagen. And they did that by writing C++ code, and then we integrated it to our engine. But eventually that will be the next step. So as it is right now, you can connect to your external software via OSC, and then just use of the interfaces and the controllers that you can customize quite a lot.
Okay.
I was wondering, do you consider this as a change in the sensory relations of the user with their instrument? And if yes, has it affected the way that you get inspired for composing sounds and overall the artistic creation? And in practice, has it affected the results? And if yes, have you done any research to kind of prove that thing? So it's like 3 levels.
It has been very informal. We are because yes, we've been showing it to different musicians and with different backgrounds. So we have seen that people with a lot of programming mindset when it comes to music, they get it quite fast. But also some more music-oriented people get more. They dare more to start like hacking things but in a more formal research, we have not explored that yet. But it has been more like the testimonials that we've been getting from the users and the people we've been showing it around. But it's still very early to really know if this is actually the way to go. There's some things that are just way easier to do in a 2D scenario. Like we start doing this. This is one of the latest updates that we start working on. So you can now play outside of virtual reality because some things are just better to deal with logic through a screen. but when it comes to performance, like I can do two things at once and place objects here, so it becomes more gestural, and the performers seems to be quite happy with it. But it's too early to really know if this is actually the way to go, or we need to do it in a completely different way, because the controllers are still too early, basically. So I don't know if that answered anything.
Yeah, but I mean, regarding the testimonials, the thing that you mentioned, did they mention that it had effects on their artistic kind of approach, creation? I mean, like the way that they might actually, for example, compose stuff?
Yes, since we start very minimal, because this started as a game, and then somebody told us, but this is a modular synthesizer, and we're like, okay, but we just didn't have a lot of components, so the limitations and the fantasy behind already set you in a mood where none of these things are familiar, and for the people who actually get into that mindset, they start exploring and playing with concepts like somebody wrote on the websites, like, I never had so much fun just playing with two sine waves, and they just get to explore, like, what is the difference between 3 hertz and 4 hertz when you are doing modulation. So just by having the physical, people get to play with very simple elements that in other software is just to, okay, yeah, you just need to understand this so we can move to the real thing. And in theater, thanks to the medium, and because we come from a visual background and computer graphics and animation, so a lot of these things were like very surprising for us, that there's a lot of overlaps. And in animation or computer graphics, you think about space, and in sound, you think about time, but you do sine waves or random generators as well to do things in both disciplines. So by having these objects in a very low level approach, which like a multiplication is a multiplication, and most of the softwares use the same principles, but they just create nicer or more hidden interfaces, allowed people to discover basic principles in a new way and start playing with that. Like, for example, having an LFO making the bass line, and then connecting that to the colors of the dome. Because like once you start playing with these numbers, you can start modulating color at the same time in your room without going into a theater or a larger venue. So some of the people who come from the visual background start playing more with sound, and some sound people start playing more with visuals, because it's the same function, basically.
Thanks.
I have one question.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the context of collaboration in concerts, how do different performers synchronize with one another, especially with the one performing with the mux, as there is no eye contact, and also how to know who is leading or what to follow?
Right. That has been an interesting challenge. That's when creativity comes into play, because usually the guy playing with Mousse at the moment becomes the guy setting the tempo, and the other people follow that. And it's a little bit difficult. I've been playing with a few people, and sometimes we spend like an hour playing, and I just know they are there because I hear them, but otherwise it's like they could have put it in a loop and I'm the only one there. So that's still it's still a challenge of this medium, but if we look a little bit more into the future, virtual reality and augmented reality are blending now. HTC Vive, which is one of the other creators of these devices, are coming with 2 cameras, and then you can start seeing some of these things. So as I said, the technology is still very, very has a lot to develop. Like the interfaces are rapidly changing, and the augmented reality is getting way better. So eventually, something like this will be very easy to take out the background and be able to see things, and then you could start blending your normal instruments and see the people around, which I think is going to be amazing. But having objects in 3D space, so then using the best of both worlds. But I don't know if I'm again I give a very long answer again. But yeah, right now it's a lot by ear or by having this OSC metronome syncing. There's the possibility on, I think, Ableton Link. We've been looking at it to be able to connect and to have something that fits in the tempo, but is still in the future development.
In the same, how was the feedback from the guitarists, who was backing up the Mox player in that concert, if there was any?
The feedback in which way,
In terms of playing together, like the same synchronizations and stuff.
I think they work with the limitations. There was something that they mentioned that they compose the whole concert around the instrument, because it was like, okay, yeah, there's some things that we are very used to do, but instead of having something really tight, the whole composition became around those limitations. That concert was a year ago, almost. So they were also happy because they're quite experienced musicians, and when it comes to more music, they're more open for explorations. And sometimes it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this made me think in a different way, and I liked it. That's one kind of musician, and the other guy's like, no, this is what I want, and this is what I expect. I just want to do it better, faster. Then they don't get so happy with Mousse. But if there's the first ones, they get quite, oh, okay, maybe we can do it like this, and they create something that they will not do otherwise. So they were happy with that.
Thank you.
We hear very weak the song.
We hear you very weak, Osman.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I really liked the marble gravity kind of function that you had. Is there any other sort of marrying of visual and audio?
Sorry, I cannot really hear you that well.
I'll try this mic. Is that better?
Yes.
Better. Okay. Yeah, really cool project. I really liked the marble gravity sort of module that you've made. That seems kind of unique to this environment. Is there any other modules like that sort of have a visual or
yes,
sort of process to it?
This is one. Look, it's gonna shoot. Do we still have time?
Yeah, we can have.
So this is another one that it's quite, I think, unique of virtual reality. So this is a 3D theremin. And each axis is controlling different. And I'm putting it to a quantizer. So that's the other one that is quite unique for the medium as well. And we are now, I cannot show you in this version, but we are working to be able to pan you will have virtual controllers, and you will be able to create events based on the position of the trigger, and if this gets pressed, and also based on the distance. So you can create an object, and depending where you are, it just gives a number. So those things will, or for example, the head. If you move around or you look this way, you will become like the blend between the user and the interface will blend, so you will become like an instrument by it. And that's something that I think is just possible. Well, it will be possible if you have a very high budget production, but with this one you can prototype so fast that I think eventually it's gonna be something that can be quite new. But those are the things that we've been exploring. The rest is already too tricky whenever we show things, because it's very isolated. You get into a new universe, you put this on, and some people is like, okay, look to the right, and they forget what right is. So we are giving them a little bit more, like trying to be a bit more slow in the introduction. So bottom looks a little bit different, but it's still a bottom, and you have a switch, and just to get them familiar, and then we go bananas.
Cool, thank you.
Cool. Do you have prepared some more for the first session, or shall we go for a break and come back?
Hold on, there was a
Alright.
question, Ashane. There is just one question Jørgen wanted to ask here.
Yeah, I can ask it
That could be the
after
last
all.
one.
So
Here, by the way. Oslo has some more questions also.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
go for it.
yeah, I can wait till next session. Or
No, let's make time for questions.
okay, who goes first?
You go.
Okay.
Now.
I don't know if you've answered this, but I just I'm on your website and I see like on this MOOCs and I see like engineer, compose, perform, share. Have you thought about kind of promoting or building a version that's for let's say for instance the bachelor program here? We learn a lot about acoustics and synthesis and
Sonification.
and sonification. Yeah, but and like I see this virtual environment, this program could maybe have could be used as a good tool for education, like to learn how synthesis works and how you could also make models of acoustic properties. And like, have you discussed having that approach? Is that something you're going to do?
Yes, actually, since, like I said at the beginning, this is not optimized for like an outcome in that sense. Some people are taking it into the pro level, but you have access to very pro things since it's so low level. And yes, when it comes to education, it has been a lot of good reception, but we need to create these modules. And we've been talking to different universities about this, or like, and that will be something quite interesting. But it needs to be in collaboration with someone. Otherwise, if it becomes a little bit too much of a project for us.
Maybe it could be a master thesis.
Yeah.
So here we have master thesis topics. So that could be a master thesis topic, perhaps.
Yes, that would be great. It's like, yes, the guys who make the physical models, I think it was part of a thesis, like, and yeah, when it comes to the educational institutions and research centers are excited about this because, of course, it's new media, but also for the educational purposes, since you need to, in order to understand how a sine wave works, you either need to visualize or have like this very abstract mind, or a lot of time to play with these things. But if I can show you a spectrogram and then I can show you how actually something is moving with the same pattern, that can allow younger generations to start playing with these things way earlier. And when they come to the same level as you guys are like, they might already have a different conception of these concepts. So if there's, we are very open for collaboration. If somebody's interested in that, that was gonna be the things that I was gonna say after, but that would be really cool, and we'll be very happy to collaborate in any of these possible future venues.
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem. So, was another question? Or?
In Oslo, yes.
So I suggest that we can go for a break now and come back and yeah. Now we are back to the second session, and we will run until 12 o'clock. So, so you guys have, if you guys have any questions, you can present during the session. So back to Edo.
Okay. Thank you. So I will show you now a bit more of these pre-made machines. And I'm not sharing my screen, but sure. Share computers in there. Cool. So I have some of them are more like some demos that people have been making, and some of them are more like instrument likes. So I will start with, I show you a bit of the sequencer, that is one of the simplest ones. And I will get this headset again, double hand. Okay, so here are some of the physical models. This is still quite experimental and in the prototype level, but we have pads that can be customized. Depends on where I hit it and how hard I hit it. And that's controlling the machine in the back. And again, we have different properties that can and so yeah, it's a pad. This is a bit more of the traditional components. The Terramux I show you, but like some of the things that I didn't show is so you can create your own scale. And let's see if I can. This is highly experimental at the moment, but rotor. So this piece is what the tracking is. It's a rotor. Let's see if I will animate this little ball by a machine. So I'm gonna put this multiplier again, just to control how much it will wiggle, and I will use an LFO to animate this. Okay. So now we can see that it's moving, and it's gonna move this guy. It's a little bit too much. Now I can control the amplitude of this. I don't know if this is practical, but it's something you can do. So it's more like to start building more installations or kinetic sculptures, for that matter, in connecting the sound and motion in some interesting and funky ways. And this setup is actually quite nice to experiment, and we can see how we are moving around over there. So this is some of the a bit more experimental side of it. And then here we have a bunch of ring modulators and the whole engine that maybe would be a little bit too funky to get into right now. And we can see that we have this axis being controlled. I'm gonna stop this guy. So this one is moving this knob, and we have the other one controlling. This is basically a 3D interface to control information, and you could do that to any other instrument. But this one sounds kind of okay. The sequence I already showed you, and there's a few more others, but I think that's okay. I want to show you these guys, which are a little bit more interesting. So, as I was saying, like, you can really program a lot. The system is Turing complete, kind of like our old programmer did a small processor inside with events. So you can go into very advanced logic gates and events and whatnot, and you can start doing some procedural compositions like this. And let me just put it a little bit lower so I can. So we can, this one I cannot follow the information. So we can follow a little bit. There's something going wrong in this build, but usually you can see the light bulb sliding. So sorry about that. But the whole point is that you can follow what's going on, and as here are these different like a knob. You can start modifying it. It's not so interactive, but it's more like being inside of a patch in similar programs like Max or Q Data, and putting it around you or just showing it as it is. So this is more like some compositions playing with logic and proceduralism. And then we have these guys. So it's another way of using the marbles. So you start interfacing with these lasers and using gravity as a delay and having the sequence running. So I don't know, I cannot catch them. Again, for example, I could put this moving part and just add more randomness or something. And here you have, again, the sound engine, what is making all the sound. Like, we don't have samples at this moment. And we start now playing also with MIDI inputs. So I think I'm gonna show you that one at the last. But here are two, like this one, I think we used to test the sound before. But I want to show you how we could hack this machine. For example, here we have a multiplier, a total, that's gonna multiply by 0 or 1. And basically and then here we have the speed and the tempo. And here we have our sequence going around. And like for example, I could, this is a counter, we can see 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But let's hack a little bit this machine, make it, to give it more control. So I will create spawn, toggle, board. So I will make a little sequence here. And it's one moment. This is a random generator. I will come back to this. I also need a gate. Cannot. Okay. Let's see. It's gonna be delayed. Okay. It's not gonna work. So instead of like first, I'm gonna show you a bit more like this random thing. Instead of going in a sequence, I'm gonna get rid of this. So right now we're going. So instead of going like this. Right now it's not moving. Okay. So now I have two ways. I can have a random sequence, or I can have it in a loop. So I'm gonna create this one that is dividing like before. I have an index. So 0 will be in a sequence, and 1 will be random. Then I will feed it, and I put the something funky. Okay, I see what. I also need to press the button. Okay. Oh, sorry, I got out of the scene. This is an event multiplier, so it's getting into higher frequencies. Oh no, it's a delay. How much this ring modulation is letting pass every time? Like so. For example, this will be something that we could put to a Terramux or to start building these interfaces backwards. So you find some elements that you think, oh yeah, this is nice, play with, instead of like doing it with one gesture.
Edo?
You could be an interface, yeah?
I'm just wondering if I can ask you a question while you're in the virtual reality
Yes,
space.
yes, absolutely. Actually, it makes me feel like I'm not talking to myself, so. Yeah.
I hope you hear it. So because we are in this program, we're dealing with mainly sonification during this 2 weeks workshop. I was wondering about the shape of the musical devices you create in relation to the sound they make. What was the thinking process behind the shape of the device and their sound function? Was it imagination, vintage instrument inspiration from old components? How did you come up with the visual in relation to the sonification of it?
Right. As I mentioned a little bit before, but without the demonstration, it was a lot about based on the information that you're passing by, and like these are arithmetic operations. This is a multiplication sign. Oh, the parking. So this is a multiplication sign, and then you have a lot of repetition based on the connections. So that's already giving a lot of character to the objects, and then it becomes like what are the like a knob should look a little bit like a knob, but also since you are in this new space, things cannot be that small, otherwise they get flickery. So that's already a limitation that the medium was dictating. and a lot of like iteration basically. But to short the answer, it's like a lot of the information that is passing by is like the function. Like, okay, these are numbers, but what kind of numbers are you sending? Is something that you just send once, like for example, we could have here a button. And
yeah, so I see, for example, under the button there is a spring that goes up and down.
Yeah, like
to push the button up.
What is this is still in like being redesigned somehow, but basically what we are trying to explain here is that it doesn't matter if I change this, nothing will happen until I press this. So this is a cold input and this is hot component. So
but if I focus, for example, on the speaker that you see that goes up and down with the amplitude. Yeah. So this was based on physics. Did you come up with this idea, or somebody in your team came up with this idea because this is how physically this thing works, or it was just
this is basically like, sorry, I cannot hear. I didn't hear the last thing you said.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what affects you guys besides the data, which I understand that is what's the input and the output, and what passes through the device. They still have their own kind of shape, which is quite unique and yeah.
Yes. So that was the first way of dividing things. Like, is it a wire or is it a car? And then after that, what is it doing? For example, this is random, and this is noise. Basically, they are the same but different. Like this is just every time, and this is just passing like a high speed. So if I get a metronome, and I get this guy here, it's not gonna do exactly the same. This is a converter, so I'm just gonna convert this guy from 0 to 1 to arrange the 1 and -1, because that's what the speaker takes. So, and I'm just gonna get this. So if I go fast enough, it will become white noise. So it's basically like, hey, look, these are similar in function, but they have this different type of information. And this one, yes, is basically to just on the physics of the real object, so you can see the membrane of the speaker moving around, and it's I don't know but yes, a lot of it was also based on this fantasy of like vintage, and yes, like to have this power approach on the you are creating these gigantic machines, because this is not it's not that complex basically, like the what it's doing in sound, but it's quite impressive if you are inside. The outside is not so much maybe, but just having something that you can build bigger than yourself is it can get you to think differently, because then like a sine wave, now you can grab it and it's like a mango size. So how can we make such fundamental components a bit more interesting? In the combination of all of those things, that was the idea behind. I don't know if that answered a little bit of the question.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. things that you can do here and keep modifying it and connecting them to yourself, or and you can save them. And we until now, actually this is a newer version, that's why some things are still funky, but until then we didn't have any copy and pasting, and now we have it on the PC version, and soon we are gonna have copy paste to start to get the exploration a bit faster. But it has been quite okay, we just open one piece and we just let it, we figure out, okay, this is the nice things to do. And for example, this is very known in the modular synths, but let me just show you a new thing. So if you have an object here, speaker, and I'm gonna have a multiplier to control the amplitude, and I'm gonna have a oscillator, and I'm gonna have two decays. One will control the amplitude, and the other one will make a sweep in the frequency. So if I don't connect this guy, and if I connect this guy, and I will say, okay, let's go from, this is my default value, let's go from to 60 and then go 120. And I will connect it here, and I will create a button to control both things. So I'm gonna press this guy and this guy. Let's just make it a bit more obvious. And I will make this one a little bit longer. So just by having one piece, it should not, for example, this can also, so this is one component. The other one is in a lot of other softwares, I saw that you have the LFO and the oscillator being a different component. But here you can have, let's get an FM chain. So yeah, so I'm gonna have another multiplication sign. I'm gonna connect it here to control the amplitude. I'm gonna connect an oscillator here, and then we're gonna use an add. So this will become my index of modulation. Okay? Then I'm gonna have another multiplication sign. And then if you see that they need to be a bit more clear, but it's trying to make the star of the multiplication. And the add is okay, it's a little bit more based on the electronic components. So you can do things in and then add them together. But it's not, the designs are not done. But here, we're gonna have how much it wiggles or oscillates. And this will be our LFO. So I'm just gonna go into a low rate. Let's just get something like this. So this will be an FM chain in this program. So we were trying to isolate some components, like for example, if you really understand or want really understand the power of multiplication and addition, you can use them for a lot of things. You can use addition to put sounds together, or to move the frequency, the bass on the index of modulation here says how high or low I'm doing my tone, how much I go from that index, how fast I do. But the same, I'm using also a multiplication sign to modulate the amplitude. So those were some of the thought behind. It's okay, this this is still an operation, like a multiplication sign, but here we are dealing with signals that are happening all the time. I don't know if that answers the question, but it's trying to make them distinct enough in a 3D space, so you can look them around, but also that they are still, we haven't get to the higher level component. We're still basically in the circuit level. So the interfaces should be a bit more like familiar. Like, for example, this one. How are we doing on time?
We have another 20 minutes left.
Including questions? Or?
Yeah.
So maybe I will show you this and then we go to the questions. So here I have my sounds over there, which is I didn't have time to clean this up. These are the generators. And here I have my transpose. So it's the challenge is how to make something very modular and reusable, because a button can be activating different things. Like before, I was using it to activate a sound, and here is using it to transpose the whole sequence. So that has also been quite a challenge or something that we've been thinking a lot. So because eventually somebody was asking, how much can you customize these things? And the goal would be that you can customize them so much that it becomes your machine. We want to make them feel like they're completely yours. And some of the things that we've been doing is also playing a lot with how you render, how you see things in virtual reality. So we are using this stereoscopic vision, like they call it the cyclop eye, how you make sense of these 3D objects by the two inputs. And so there's no depth in the rendering. That's why it looks a little bit different on the screen. But it was just to make these objects blend, so you can combine them in ways that you don't see this overlap. And eventually you can start playing with more of this modularity. So I will take it off. I'll take it off just with this one. So this is MIDI things that we're having, that we were applying for a fund, and then they told us, hey, no, but we are more into chamber music. So we sent them this. So it's just and you could imagine any sound, but I just So, and it keeps going. So I will take it off, and any questions will be very welcome.
Yeah, actually, I have a question regarding the designing process. During the designing process, did you guys alter it based on the user experience, or was it only your team decided, okay, these are the functions that that we are going to include?
I've been traveling a lot, showing this this program or instrument, and a lot is a lot of the feedback I've been getting is yes, the ideas that people share is more on the it would be so nice to have this new feature. So but by looking at people using it, I've been gathering this information. Okay, where are they? What is not so nice, or what's actually taking a lot of time? So the user experience has been prototyped based on that. Like for example, the size of a slider. What if you have 4 of them? Are you getting confused on which selection are you having, or should it be bigger, or maybe it's too big, so you cannot control enough parameters to be good enough? And that has been a lot of the user testing, but mainly users complain right now because of crashes, because it's still like that's why we had the baby at the beginning, because it's in early access, so it's not done but we it's either crashes or feature requests. Like right now the audio comes still in mono, so we are talking how to do this specialized audio and how to play, because it will make absolute sense that you can just grab the speakers and put them around and have like some spatialization, connect them to an LFO and create something completely insane, but it's more how to pace the development. But in the design, there's a very split feedback. Some people love that they don't know what's going on until because it's like, okay, it made me rethink how I approach audio. And some composers with years of experience is like, oh, this makes me want to go back to perform, because it gets it's a very fascinating medium to get inside of something completely alien. And some people are like, hey, no, but this is too crazy. I need something a bit more like familiar. And we still don't know what's I think it should be a balance, but we'll see.
Thank you.
Any other question?
Yeah, I have one. What's your plan forward in relation to working with interactivity with other musicians? Do you see like 2-player being a possibility in the future, or can you even take an analog signal from, for example, a guitar and play with it?
You cannot do that right now, but we are. The problem with this project is that we are like it started as an independent research. We are collaborating with some institutions, but mainly it has been 2 guys doing it. So what we end up doing now is we are doing the smaller projects that are a bit less. You can do all these things. Like for example, we are doing a singing application and using virtual reality as a feedback mechanism, and that piece of technology will allow us to put in Mousse the line in and have some analysis for that input. So we are like trying to get modular in our software development and keep bringing back to Mousse until the medium is mature enough to be able to just let it bring resources to develop the project. And for multiplayer, we also been talking to some guys in France about that. They've been doing this for many years in terms of audio networking, and we are seeing how will be the smartest step to get into it. But it requires some thought and strategy to jump into that. What you can do now is it's either OSC or you can start having different screens, and what I showed you before, that's some of the things that we've been working a lot the last months, is to be able to play like this asymmetric collaboration where you have someone in the computer just clicking things and the toggles and sliders and the other person in the virtual reality world. So that's the first multiplayer thing that we are about to release. The rest will come depending on the partners and the people and all these things.
How large is the community?
Right now it's like around 500 people, and it's still like, the thing is that we released the first without tutorials, just like, okay, big disclaimer, there's not tutorials, you can do stuff with the software, but we haven't get to that. So if you guys want to use it, if not, wait until we get to the tutorials. But we have like 500 people, and a few of them been sending us machines, and somebody made a small game in it, like something that you can shoot marbles. You have a component that you can add velocity to the marbles, like a marble booster. So you have like a gun shooting marbles, and if he hits this moving object, it will make a sound. So that was completely unrelated of the original idea, but it was fascinating to see. Someone sent us an FM synthesizer, which was the X90. I don't remember the exact model, but he made a replica of a synth, and some people have already used it in performances. So the problem is also that you need to copy things. You need to get inside the computer and check the save file and send it. So in the future, that now we are talking about the future, it's we are gonna have like this online asset store forum where people can upload and download each other's machines, and I think that's going to increase the ease of shareability and the community, because right now it's a little bit too spread, and also by having it playable outside virtual reality, more people can start using it and sharing, because either you need to be part of a university like you guys, or have that headset at home, and not a lot of people have it yet.
We just installed ours here yesterday.
Sorry, what?
We just installed our Vive VR headset yesterday, so it will be interesting to.
What? We have
Oh,
one here?
what?
That would be great. Look, it's
Ah.
just let me know if I can help with anything, because it will be great to see what you guys end up making. That's has been quite a journey. Some people use it in things, like the first time we started sharing stuff, people send us some machines, and I was like, oh, I didn't know we could make these sounds already.
Nice.
Oslo, we don't see you, just saying.
What, sorry?
No, we are just communicating with Oslo, we don't see them.
Oh.
There we go.
Yeah, you have to change. You have to
No, no.
change.
No,
We
no,
can-
see.
we
No,
can see you now. We can see you now.
Sorry.
And what kinds of software do you use, Edo?
In which way?
Like making these things? Do you use Max, MSP things, or it's totally new thing?
We did the guy I started the company with. he built an engine. So we have a native engine to generate the audio. But we are now we talk a little bit with the guys on Max, and we are talking to other companies to see if we will just focus on the interfaces and use the audio engine, or we need to see if somebody else will carry on the engine side, because becomes too many things. But right now it's basically a C++ environment doing the audio engine, and then we connect the interface to Unity. So we are using Unity as a asset manager and getting all the 3D objects and the interactions and all the virtual reality base from Unity, and having DLL compiled to get the audio in. Is that?
Yeah, great, thanks.
And then when I was watching now a little bit, maybe because I don't game a lot or something, but I got a little bit dizzy, I have to say. So do you think on the long run it is more a tool for exploration and more for education, or also for concerts? And if also for concerts, do you think there might be a conflict and people like seeing the screen or listening to music, and how like perceptual conflict kind of? Yeah.
Right. There is a common problem, and especially right now because I was just feeding you with my camera, with my head camera, so that can be a bit too crazy. But if it's more for a concert setting, what we have is you can create cameras. So you can build a camera system and then you project something static and switch around these cameras. So it's still that's another of the venues that we need to develop even more. But that's the solution we came up with, because that's normal. It's not about gaming or not gaming. It's just like following something that is very shaky, like myself. It can be tricky to do it if you are not responsible on the motion. But by having something static and then just be able to project, I think you can get into more interesting domains in performance, because it's like if you think about theater is great for dialogue, but movies are fantastic for framing, like shots. So you could do something like that in a performance now, in real-time performance.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and just one question. Do you have ideas on having binaural audio, or is it already have inside the system?
No, right now it's mono.
Okay.
Yes, we are trying to figure out that next step, trying to do this first multi-channel output, and then see how to deal with these channels. And it's still quite a strategic debate and with the people, to see what should be next. But yes, I think that would be fantastic, especially for the medium, since you can grab it and hear based on your hand. So hopefully in the future that will come out.
Yeah, great.
Just a quick question. You mentioned Ableton Live Sync. Have you got it to sync with Ableton? Or can you receive messages from Ableton or send messages or audio to and from?
Not audio rate, but we have people using it via OSC. So we have OSC in and out. And at the moment is limited to the refresh rate of the headset. So that's 90 Hertz. But we also hope to get that cap out. But right now, that's how people been doing it, like via OSC.
Okay, so that's what they used in the performance video you showed us. Do you know
And
what they
in the
used?
performance video, they did all the sounds in Mousse.
Okay.
So yeah, I have a question. So you've talked about the future. So now there seems to be a second wave of VR that is kind of ending. Just wonder, how do you envision? You've talked already about different ideas on performance and the experience in the 3D space. But how do you envision this in this third wave of VR, music technology, sonification, applications that support this domain?
It's still quite early to say because even if it's such a new frontier, at least in Europe, it's a little bit conservative, and I think it will. I think yeah, just to move like this is what I was talking. We are going to have samples. Ghosts is like so you can record yourself and play with yourself in the like. That doesn't sound good. It's just. Like you can be like you can make something automatic and put it in a loop, and then overlay your actions on top. And that's what I wanted to say. It would be about the community, because of course the devices are getting cheaper right now. There's this one coming, and everybody's very excited about this Oculus Quest, which will allow you to play without a computer. So it's a little bit more powerful than a phone, but less powerful than a computer. And that might change a lot, because when we show this, when we are talking to people, it's like, okay, how can I get this? This is, I'm excited about this. How? And you need to explain them, you need a computer, you need the headset, you need to install, you need to make a whole day, and then you can start playing with this. But with that device, you just have one object, and then you can just take it around and play it anywhere. And that might change a lot, and that will make users more prone to experience that, and developers faster to jump into this, because right now it's still too early. It's either when we talk with people, it's either researchers or a bit more gimmick applications, like okay, let's just put you somewhere very like tall and see how it feels to have this vertigo without fear of dying for real. And that's still quite a part of the things that people are sharing and exchanging around. But I think that might change a lot, and we'll see after spring whether it's supposed to come out. And hopefully at the end of this year will be a completely different scenario, but they've been saying this since the 70s, so it's just like, so let's see.
Thanks.
Yeah, any more questions? Yeah, so I think we can so I think we can close this session, and we have come to an end for the first half of today's workshop. So first of all, I would like to thank you, Edo, for such an inspiring and very unique ideas that you shared among us. We would like to have you here again, and yeah, and please a round of applause to Edo.